So recently there was a House Judiciary Committee hearing on Google. Apparently, Republicans continue to believe that Google executives or Google workers are trying to censor conservative points of view by basically putting up negative news stories or prioritizing negative news stories against Republicans. Now, one specific Republican that continues to get mentioned is Steve King. Now, why? Well, it's because King is basically a white supremacist. So there are a lot of stories about how Steve King is a white supremacist. And Republicans are very, very unhappy about that. So they begin to question Google CEO Sundar Pichai. Now, during that testimony, Democratic Representative Ted Lieu had singled out Steve King, who has had his own problems with some of his views, which again are racist and white supremacist views that are getting pointed out. And he is losing donors and losing a lot of support. So that's a great thing. Finally, Steve King might actually be getting in trouble for his terrible, horrific views. Now, Lieu had read some headlines from a Google search about House Majority Whip Steve Scalise. Now, he noted that the first few articles about Scalise were favorable to him and included those from conservative media outlets. Lieu asked Pichai whether people at Google were manipulating those results to favor Scalise. So that, again, that's a Republican line. Ted Lieu's a Democrat, and he's basically trying to make the point of Google is not basically messing with these search results in order to favor Democrats over Republicans or to make conservatives look bad. And he's going to make that point. He said, you don't have a group of people at Google sitting there thinking, hey, we like Steve Scalise, so we're going to generate positive articles on these search results. That's not what's happening, right? Pichai responded, no, we don't deal with individual queries with any viewpoint. So now Lieu then pulled out his smartphone for a Google search, and he entered Steve King's name. Now, this is great. Now, Steve King, a little bit upset from this. Now, Lieu says, quote, I'm going to change one word. So I'm going to search for Congressman Steve King. I'm going to hit the news tab. First article that pops up is from ABC News. It says Steve King's racist immigration talk prompts calls for congressional censure. That's a negative article. But you don't have a group of people at Google sitting there thinking and trying to modify search results. Every time Steve King comes up, a negative article appears. That's not what's happening, right? Pichai again says no, saying that Google does not manipulate search results for people in that way. Now, look, there is a way that you can actually, as a user, influence search results, and that's by inputting certain terms. So you put in certain terms, and if a lot of people are searching for those terms and clicking on those articles, then obviously that's going to show up more often when you actually search for those things. Okay? So that's how it works. Now, these Republicans, they don't understand that. They think, oh no, people at Google, they're a liberal company. So they're going to go, and by the way, it's hilarious thinking that Google is a liberal company. They're a corporation, they're amoral. So they look at their profit margins. Now, they might say, oh, well, Google's, in California, Silicon Valley, so they're obviously super liberal, right? Well, look, they favored net neutrality. Why did they favor net neutrality? Because it was in their best interests when it came to economics. But it also happened to be the right thing to do on other issues as well. But generally, as I said before, these corporations, they don't have a morality. What they do is that they look at profit margins. And so anyway, that said, they don't have a political bias either. So they're not going to sit there and censor search results for conservatives and modify search results for conservatives. Now, there are algorithms that they can do, of course, in machine learning and things that try to tailor search results more to you. And that can be problematic. And we've been, of course, buried in search results ourselves. So under more established news outlets. So if you can say, that they have any sort of ideology, for one, it's to make money. And for two, the establishment right now is making them money. So Again, let's be, if we're going to have a conversation on that, then you could also add that in. But I'm afraid that gets into a lot more nuance, a lot more technical discussion on how those algorithms actually work, right? I'm going to skip that. Now, Lieu, getting back to him, he said, let me just conclude here by stating the obvious. If you want positive search results, do positive things. If you don't want negative search results, don't do negative things. And to some of my colleagues across the aisle, and I love this quote, if you're getting bad press articles and bad search results, don't blame Google or Facebook or Twitter. Consider blaming yourself. Oh, that's awesome. Now, look, I'm not a huge fan of Ted Lieu, but that was great. Look, I don't get it. All these Republicans continue to do these, hearings, wasting all this time to go and talk about how they're unfairly portrayed in media or online. But as Lieu points out, it's not because they're colluding in back rooms, smoke-filled rooms to make conservatives look bad. It's because conservatives, what they're doing, their policy positions are terrible and are deeply, deeply unpopular. That's what's going on here. So, yes, if you don't want to be called, it goes back to if you don't want to be called a racist, then stop saying or doing racist things. If you don't want to be called this, then stop doing that. It is really, really simple. And when it comes to Steve King, again, with King, he has said and done a lot of racist things. He said things like, you can't rebuild your civilization with someone else's babies. He's made the cantaloupes calves comment like, oh, for every valedictorian, there's 10 people with cantaloupe calves because they're bringing drugs across the border. Mexico, that's not true, and it's deeply racist, comparing immigrants to dogs. Hey, Steve King, if you don't want to be called a racist and don't want negative racist articles, then you should stop being racist. It is as simple as that, and yet he's never going to understand that. He's never going to stop being racist, and so he's going to continue to blame these social media companies, and he's going to continue to blame these search engines for all the negative articles being written about him. It's always someone else's fault. It's always unfairness, when in reality, they bring it upon themselves. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.